Welcome to the Bear Recap. Carmy Bazzaro, a young talented chef that has worked in numerous world-class famous restaurants, returns to Chicago to run his family sandwich shop, the original beef of Chicagoland, because his brother, Michael, passed and left him the restaurant. They have a new recruit, Sydney, an ambitious, talented chef that has also worked in prominent restaurants. She is only there for Carmy, her inspiration and idol. Carmy's cousin and OG is Richie. He struggled to adapt to the changing environment of the restaurant. Marcus is the pastry chef. Tina is another cook that works on the line. Ibrahim also works on the line as a seasoned cook. Neil Fat comes by here and there as a handyman and helps out where he can. The business is barely above water, with Carmy's changing and turning workflow and ecosystem. On top of this, he finds out that Michael owes Cicero, a family friend, $330,000. They believe he spent it on drugs. Carmy didn't realize this until recently. Tight on cash, he has to sell his collection of clothing to supply meat for the sandwiches. Richie has to deal with his cross-dressers and gamers. Carmy has a strenuous relationship with his sister Natalie or Sugar. Reeling from the grief of Michael's sudden suicide, she advises him to seek help because he typically meshes his work life with personal and never really addresses the deep-rooted issues. They work out a new system for the kitchen to be more organized. Haunted by his stressful time as a sous chef for Noma, he was brutally and carelessly berated for being insufficient. He would sometimes find himself watching food burn, explaining that he wishes everything would burn down and with it went all the stress and pressure. They are rated a C for health rating, so Sydney drives Richie to the store for coke to fill a hole. Richie's family life is strained, his ex-wife naming him Richie Bad News. His daughter often gets bullied for their financial situation. Ambitious, talented chef Sydney tries to improve the place. Recommendations of changing placements, time slots, and even adding different food items. Also delivery options, but she is typically looked over or ignored. She tries to voice her concerns once more. Again, Carmy admits his faults and tries to listen. Unable to start paying off the $330,000 debt, they start to cater Cicero's events, starting with kids' parties. Richie joins him and, accidentally, spills Xanax pills into the communal drinking Scorpion bowl. Cicero doesn't mind the peace and quiet. They are introduced to Pete, Natalie's husband, a dull, calm guy that tries to fit in. The faulty toilet causes plumbing issues. Fack tries to fix it while helping Richie with a favor, but he thinks about applying for the restaurant with cook positions open. Richie shoots down this idea, and they get into a massive scuffle because of it. In this, he reveals that Richie has been dealing outside in the alley. Disappointed, Carmy makes him promise to stop. That very day, behind on the cake prep, Marcus pushes the mixer to the max capacity, straining the circuit, and it shorts the same day, cutting all electricity from the shop. So he turns back to the streets and asks Richie to deal one last time. Meanwhile, they haul all the meat and produce to Pete's place to keep cool before service. He is confronted by bitter Natalie that is infuriated he only calls for help, but beyond the familial problems, they set up service outdoors until the power comes back on. He is confronted by Natalie once more. She had put down her house for collateral and placed herself as co-owner. Now the IRS are looking for her to pay off the payroll taxes as Michael never did. They look through all the files for the payroll in 2018. Whilst this occurs, they solve the issues. Carmy admitting that he is finally attending the AR9 meetings, and Natalie that she is angry at him for never asking about how she is, and that she also lost a brother. Slowly healing their grief together, they find the payroll in 2018. Richie also snitches on the gangsters that hang outside the shop, getting them arrested. During prep, he has a massive fight with Sydney. Tina admits that he needs to change with the system, as they are all trying to improve and he is remaining the same. Sydney also tests her shot at the braised short rib with risotto. With compliments galore, Carmy still knows it isn't ready for service. In secret, she hands it out to a customer rather than disposing of it. The next day, they find a review of the restaurant. All praises, especially the braised short rib with risotto. Carmy passes this up as a simple mistake, but Richie and her argue over it. Another problem arises. When Sydney left the pre-order option open, now they have over 250 beef sandwiches needing to be prepped. The kitchen erupts. Carmy screams at Sydney, and trying to help Marcus transport the cake, Richie bumps into her. They blame each other for the drop and are both chastised for this mistake. He tries to help her with vegetable prep. In this angry state, she exposes the wrongs in his life, how much of a loser he is, his family situation, and the problems with his daughter, culminating in a minor standoff. Distracted in the kitchen, she accidentally stabs him. Ibrahim helps patch him up, and tired of the constant harassment, Sydney quits, leaving Carmy to deal with the rush alone. After several weeks, Marcus gets the donuts correct. In this moment, Carmy smashes it and tells him to get back to work. Also tired of this treatment, he quits too. At a meeting, Carmy admits his faults with Michael. They both loved food and connected through it. Once they grew up, Michael started to turn cold and cut him off, not letting him cook in the restaurant or answering calls. To cope, Carmy wanted to become the best cook ever, working in all the prominent restaurants, and he did. But all he ever wanted from Michael was a good job. They continue service without Marcus and Sydney, getting off early to cater a dinner party full of strippers. They break up a fight and Richie spends the night in jail. Sydney invited over Marcus for him to try one of her dishes. She admits that when she was traveling around the world, trying the world's most renowned restaurants, the best dish she ever tried was Carmy's. Carmy apologizes to Marcus for his behavior, and in a stressful moment, Richie gives him the letter Michael left him, that he loved him. The words he had waited his entire life to hear, and also the family spaghetti recipe. He too corrects what was wrong with the braised short rib dish, and apologizes to Sydney. He cooks up the family spaghetti recipe, discovering all the $330k that Michael had left him, borrowed from Cicero, just as Sydney walks in to find him throwing around tomatoes. He becomes more receptive to her ideas and restaurant changes. They celebrate this win by rebranding to the Bear and having a family gathering. They admit this to Cicero with the high stakes offer of asking him for $500k to renovate the place, promising to get back to $830k within 18 months. Thus, they begin their renovation. Now moving smoothly, they have to reopen within 3 months, and to ensure the kitchen runs, they enlist the help of Natalie as a project manager. With need for culinary experience and a space opening up, they offer Tina the role of sous chef, meaning she will second Sydney, as Sydney now needs to focus on being expo. She is sent to culinary school to learn correct etiquette and techniques. With this, she is followed by Ibrahim, another line cook. Citing that you can't train an old dog new tricks, he struggles to adapt and slowly begins to stop showing up to lessons. Marcus, the pastry chef, faces his own difficulties, taking care of his hospitalized mother and the challenge of leaving her with caretaker Gabby. The complications that once he is overseas, at any moment she could pass. Being sent to Copenhagen to study under a world-renowned pastry chef, a favor from Carmy to study under Chef Luca. He learns various skills and techniques, developing a different perspective on the role of a pastry chef. They begin deconstructing the place and rebuilding, with multiple tests needed to make sure the place is functioning and safe. On a run to the store, Carmy runs into Claire, an old family friend that he had a massive crush on. Conversing about her new hectic life as a nurse and his as a restaurant owner, they decide to exchange phone numbers for another time. At home, Sydney's father Emmanuel starts to doubt the capabilities of the restaurant because of their financial situation. Her pay will be deferred for months, and it is unstable with the chances of being closed within 18 months. Whilst going to deliver a request for a permit by letter, he meets up with Claire once more. During this time, Richie starts to question his purpose, not really knowing the adapting workspace and his old sanctuary being changed. So Carmy gives him front of house duty. He is sent to Eva, a well-known Michelin-starred Chicago fine dining restaurant. He learns about the staff meetings before every service to cater to guests with allergies. Additionally, listening to the expo on which dishes to speed up and slow down when hands are needed, and communicating with notes. Even to the extent that when the customer talks about wanting to try deep dish before leaving Chicago, Richie is made to retrieve the deep dish to satisfy the guest. At the end of the ordeal, Richie misses the speed and nature of the place, as far as asking for a position when it opens up. The Bizzardo family think on their troubling family life. Their mother, Donna Bizzardo, struggles with mental health issues and once even drove a car through the family house. Claire and Carmy are now dating, and they inch closer to a fully functioning restaurant. They hire more line cooks. They get their last few certifications, including food handler safety. During the day, Marcus suddenly asks Sydney out, and she promptly declines, awaiting the stress of the service. Carmy also forgets to call Josh, the fridge guy, to repair the walk-in. They now prepare for service on their first opening, inviting various guests like Claire, Cicero, Emmanuel, and Pete. He catches Donna outside the restaurant and struggles to get her inside. She feels like she doesn't deserve their happiness and makes Pete promise not to tell them she was there. Neil Fack helps out in front of house service. As the night becomes more hectic, Marcus brings up the rejection. They struggle to get through service, even Carmy getting locked in the walk-in, forcing Richie to take over the expo position, and it works smoothly to the end, giving Cicero a symbolic chocolate banana. They also find one of their line cooks outside smoking crack, so he's fired. Anyways, Sydney starts to question her job, forcing herself to vomit from all the stress and anxiety built up from service. Locked in the walk-in, Carmy starts to break down, worrying about his ex-boss, hating the food and criticizing him more. To the relationship with Claire, he doesn't care for the pleasure or friends, he just wants to be able to serve others, primarily focusing on his dedication to the restaurant rather than her. Without him knowing, moments before, Claire had asked to enter the kitchen and thank Carmy for the amazing work. She had heard the entire conversation. In tears, they break up, and she thanks them for the food. Irritated by Carmy making a beautiful woman cry and ruining his own relationship, Richie and Carmy argue once more, leaving him in the walk-in to freeze, until Josh arrives late enough for Carmy to exit. This is where the story ends. Make sure to subscribe, and for more, watch this.